and have a lovely day today. I'm going to teach today about the female reproductive system. But before going to detail of the system, that is the physiology of the system, I would like to go in slight brief about the anatomy. So we will begin with the anatomy of the system. What is in this world, we have both males and females. The main function of the female reproductive system is the production of the female gametes, ova, or the eggs, which are produced by the ovary, which is also in the lower animals, and they have a different aspect, but here for us it is the production of the gametes. Then the female system also has to support the developing embryo if the fertilization takes place. So we have to support, the endometrium has to support, and the growing embryo will become a fetus in the uterus. So that is the pregnancy. Next is the cyclical changes which are occurring. It is the menstrual cycle. In lower animals, it is called as the estrous cycle, or they are called an heat. It averages about 28 days. It will be from 20 days to about 45 days. But if there is abnormality of the cycle, then there will be chances of fertilization is less. It's a complex interplay. We have different hormones which are secreted from the hypothalamus, then from the anterior pituitary. We have the hormones which are secreted from the ovary, and even these steroids, that is the steroids which are also secreted from the adrenal glands. And also there are certain areas in the brain, uterus, ovaries, they all are involved in this process of the menstrual cycle. Now you can see a cross section of the reproductive system. We start from the vagina, then you go up to the cervix, the uterus, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and you have the different ligaments, the broad ligament which consists of mesosalpinx, mesoovarian, and mesometrium. They all suspend the reproductive organs. Then we have the ovarian ligament which supports the ovary. You have the uterus, then you have the suspensory ligament of the ovary, and you have the different ovarian blood vessels. So one by one we go into the different details of these organs. First, we start from the external genitalia. As we know, at puberty, there is a development of the secondary sexual character and development of the external genitalia. Though they are developed before the birth, but their development, their growth occurs after puberty to full extent. So, and also we have the accessory glands which are important for secretion of mucus and other secretions to support the lower tract. So you have the mode of the mons pubis, the clitoris, the urethra. Now we have two openings. One is a vaginal opening and the other which is covered by the hymen, and you have the urethral opening. In males, the urethra and in the penis there are this one opening in the penis. Then you have the perineum, then prepuce, labia majora, minora, hymen, and the anal opening. So first one is the mons pubis. It's an external genitalia collectively called as the vulva. Mons pubis is fatty. It becomes more fatty after puberty. It's a rounded area or the pubic, just above the pubic symphysis. It's during adolescence, the sexual hormones trigger the growth of pubic hairs, which marks the onset of pubarche. Then next is the labia majora. There are two fatty skin folds that are homologous with the male scrotum. Outer lips are darker pigmentation. They are protective. They protect the labia minora, and they are covered with hairs and sebaceous glands. They become flaccid with age and after childbirth. They swell during intercourse. They are highly vascular structure, so they swell during intercourse. The female, the next part is the labia minora. They are also called as the inner lips. They are smaller folds which are richly supplied by sebaceous gland, mucosa. They also have some erectile tissues like the penis. They have connective tissue that darkens and swells during sexual intercourse. It's located inside the labia majora. They are more sensitive and response to touch for sexual activity, The foreplay in the intercourse, before intercourse, they are responsible for stimulating the females. The labia minora tightens during sexual intercourse. Next is the clitoris. It contains some erectile cavernous tissue like the penis and richly supplied with nerves. So it is one of the most sensitive areas for female, and it is important also during orgasms, the activity that is sexual intercourse, the foreplay. So this is clitoris is highly sensitive structure for females. It is engorged with blood upon sexual intercourse. It's housed in a hood of tissue that is prepuce. As like the penis, it is formed by junction of the labia minora. Highly sensitive, composed of nerves, blood vessels and erectile tissue, and it's known for the sexual pleasures or orgasms in most women. Then urethra is a small opening situated below the clitoris and is used for the passage of urine. You can see there in the diagram. The vaginal opening is covered by a thin sheath which is known as hymen. It is the hymen can be, in olden days, the hymen was for the testing of virginity, but it doesn't make so because there may be several reasons where hymen may be absent or hymen is stirred even before sexual intercourse. So we cannot directly depend on the hymen, the structure of the hymen for the virginity testing. So other testings have to be done to know for virginity. So it's using the presence of intake hymen for virginity is erroneous now. Next is the different glands which are important, which give lubrication during sexual intercourse and also protects the structure from drying, the vagina from drying, the cervix. So they are all important, like the greater vestibular and the lesser vestibular glands. Bartholin's gland, they are posterior mucus secreting. They can plug and make cysts, and they are reservoir for venereal diseases. We'll go into the diseases in the later part. The lesser vestibular Skene's gland, they are two anterior to opening of vagina, and they are also the mucus producing glands. So as we have already seen about the hymen, it's a highly vascular, often bleeds after the first sexual intercourse, and it is not the sign of virginity always. The perineum is a muscle and tissue located just between the vaginal opening and the anal canal. It supports and surrounds the lower part of urinary and the digestive tract. The perineum contains abundance of nerve endings that make it sensitive to touch. The perineum is very important during labor. When there is normal labor, then episiotomy or cutting of the perineum is done for the passage of a big head from the vagina. This is very important, and you have to even give stitches, and that is this perineal stitches. They are very painful after birth. An episiotomy and widening of the vagina during childbirth. Then you go to the internal organs, which are very important. The most important, the female gametes, which are formed, the primordial ova, which are usually they migrate from the yolk sac. They migrate to the germinal epithelium of the ovaries, and the ovaries are the place where ultimately the ova, the different phases of development of the ova take place, from the primordial germ cells to the last, that is the Graafian follicle. So ovaries are very, very important. The next is the fallopian tubes, or transport of sperm and the ovum, and at the isthmus, if the fertilization takes place and the isthmus, then there will be place where the fertilization takes place in the fallopian tubes. And then the developing embryo is then transported. It is lined by fimbria. It is transported to the uterus. Next is the uterus, where the growing embryo and the fetus will survive, and the cyclical changes which are occurring in the uterus in monthly changes, that is called as a menstrual cycle. Then you have the cervix, it forms the birth canal, it is lower down the uterus, and then you have the vagina, which is the organ of sexual intercourse for the female. And external genitalia, Bartholin's and Skene gland we have already seen. So we will go, this is the cross section. You can see the pubic symphysis, the uterus, the urinary bladder, and you have a pouch that is called as vesicouterine pouch. Then you have the greater vestibular glands, the clitoris, minora, majora, labia, the uterus, the myometrium, the perimetrium and endometrium are the parts of the uterus. The recto-uterine pouch, where it is common, infection can occur in this pouch. Pus can be there. Then sigmoid colon, fornix, then cervix, vagina, and the anal opening. So these are all the parts which will be going on one by one. So you can see the different ligaments, the broad ligament, mesocelphic, mesoovarian, and mesometrium. And then the ovarian ligament, they are all important for suspension of these female organs in the cavity of the peritoneum. So ovaries, female gonads, also called as sexual glands, 2 almond-shaped glands on either side of the uterus. They expel about 1 ovum per month. And as compared to male, the females are born with the total supply of their ova, that is 1 to 2 million, which are in the immature stage, and then they can progress, and at each month, 1 ova is dispelled. So that only when fertilization takes place, then only 1 fetus will be formed. In many different conditions, even 2 twins and triplets can be formed, but usually, normally it is the 1 fetus with 1 fertilization. So it is they develop and expel ovum 1 per month. So about 1 to 2 million eggs are there in the called as follicles are there in the female ovary at birth. So when the germinal cells, they migrate and they form the primordial follicles, they are about 300,000. But as we progress, as the baby is born, then she will be born with about 1 to 2 million of eggs, immature eggs. But then they progress. At puberty, the meiotic divisions takes place, and if fertilization takes place, the second meiotic division takes place, and ultimately there will be the discharge, the formation of the embryo. During a lifetime, so we just required 400 to 500 eggs for fertilization. Only releases about 400 to 500, that is 1 per month, and you have an average reproductive age that is from 12 years to about 45 to 50 years. So we just will be expelling 400 to 500 mature eggs which are ready for fertilization. So much of the eggs are produced, but the requirement is very less. Same occurs in the male system. You require just 1 sperm for penetration of the ovum, but millions of sperms are produced, and they are produced for the whole lifetime. During the andropause, the cessation of there will be lesser production of the sperm. So, but after menopause, the ovum in females, after menopause, the ovums will not be released. So ovulation will not take place, and cessation of menstruation takes place. That is after the menopause. So we have a cycle from menarche that is developed that is starting of the first menstrual cycle, and then is the menopause, that is the stoppage of the menstrual cycle. So this is the reproductive cycle, reproductive age of the female, the reproductive lifespan of the female, which is from the menarche to the menopause. The follicles in the ovary produce, and the most important other part of the ovaries, it produces estrogen and progesterone and certain other substances like inhibin, which is also a hormone, and ovaries under the control of the anterior pituitary, which secretes FSH and LH, and it is also, we can see that this FSH and LH is under the control of the hypothalamus and even the higher center. So we have a 3-tier system. That is the hypothalamus, the second is the anterior pituitary, and lastly is the ovary itself and some of the androgens which are produced by the other glands also. Okay, so these are the different criteria for menstrual cycle. These hormones, they prepare the uterus, and most important part of the progesterone is for preparing the uterus for implantation of the fertilized egg. Ovary, the 3 ligaments we have already seen. Broad ligament suspends the ovary between uterus and pelvic wall. ovarian ligament attaches ovaries to the uterus, and suspensory ligament attaches ovaries to the pelvic wall. These ligaments work with the broad ligament. As we have seen, they suspend the female reproductive system in the lower abdomen, significantly different from male where all the structures they hang outside. Now, ovary is covered by 3 layers of cells with different functions. You have the tunica albuginea, there is the germinal epithelium, and there is this ovarian stalk, which is called as meso-ovarian, from where the blood vessels they enter, that is the artery and the vein. So in this, you can see the different phases of the developing ovum, or that is oogenesis, and different phases. This is germinal epithelium. It starts from the primordial follicle, and it goes to the last, that is the last one, that is the antrum follicle or the Graafian follicle. Antral follicle or the Graafian follicle. So this is, see the size of the cells, they are very small. Initially the mitosis takes place and increased development of these cells, and ultimately these primordial follicles are formed, lots of them. Then there is still, then there will be primary follicles because they are covered by granulosa cell and thecal cells, and these follicles are known as the primary follicles. In ovary, there are 2 parts, cortex and medulla. So medulla consists of the connective tissues and the stromal cells, and the cortex consists of the germinal epithelium and the thecal cells, and these the ovum which is covered by the granulosa cell. You can see the different granulosa cell. These granulosa cells give nourishment to the ova. They also secrete the different hormones, that is estrogen and progesterone. And there you can see the secondary follicle. It develops, that is about first meiotic division. This secondary follicle, we'll go to the oogenetic changes. And then lastly, the formation of the antral follicle or the vesicular follicle. So this is the outer cortex and inner medulla. We have already seen there are a lot of blood vessels and nerves which enter through the ovarian stalk. The main functional unit is the follicle. So whenever this infertility studies and all are done, usually we see for the changes in the follicle, how many follicles are maturing. Every month only one of these, there are so many follicles that are developing, about 10 to 15, but only one follicle will be progressing to the Graafian follicle stage, and only one follicle will release the ovum at the time of ovulation. So though so many follicles are being produced, but still only one will progress to the final stages. These follicles are composed of granulosa cell and a capsular cells, that is thecal cells, which consist of theca interna and theca external. And then you have the oocyte, which is present inside. So we have the resting follicle or primordial follicle, which is present at birth. Then you have the primary, secondary, and the antral follicles. So we have seen different type of follicles. Then pre-ovulatory follicle, which is known as the Graafian follicle. So you can see the different follicles. Primary follicle, granulosa cell, which increases lot of cells under the presence of FSH and LH. FSH mainly, the progression of the follicles takes place. In even the estrogen which is produced by the granulosa cell, it even causes the development of these follicles. It progresses to secondary follicle. Then you have the vesicular or the antral follicle. It is also called as the Graafian follicle. So we can see that ovary you have 3 to 5 million oogonia. They differentiate into primary oocytes during early development. The oocyte, they are surrounded by squamous cuboidal follicular cells to become the primordial follicle. Most primordial follicle undergo atresia, leaving only about 1 to 2 million at birth. Oocytes at birth are arrested at meiosis 1, that is in the prophase type. So at this stage it is arrested. So these are the ovarian changes, 3 stages of ovarian follicles. Primordial follicles, which are very prevalent, located in periphery of the cortex. Single layer of squamous follicular cells that surround the oocyte. Then you have the growing follicles. They are early primary, late primary and secondary, or the antral follicles. And lastly, you have the follicle that is a mature follicle which reaches a maximum size. There is a in the secondary follicle, there is a development of the antrum, which consists of fluid, which consists of lot of estrogen which is produced by these cells, and these estrogen will produce more of the FSH and LH as we go to the hormonal changes associated with the follicles, and this follicle will then form the mature Graafian follicle, which reaches the biggest size, that is 1 to 1.5 centimeter follicles. So this is the process of oogenesis. So you can see here the primordial follicles. It consists of single oocyte, follicular cell and stromal cells. Then there is a formation of the theca interna and theca externa. You can see there is more and more cells are being produced, and lastly you can see the formation of zona pellucida, and then lastly you can see there is corona radiata around the ovum. And from the late primary follicle to the next part, that is the secondary follicle, it is the antral follicle. Here you can see there is development of a space that is known as antrum, and there will be secretions, there will be a lot of fluid which is there in this antral follicle which will push the ovum to one side. And in this mature Graafian follicle you can see the thecal cells, even the theca interna also produces estrogen and progesterone. Theca externa is just a protective capsular layer of connective tissue. And liquor folliculi is the fluid where you can find lot of hormones present. Then you have the ovum which is surrounded by corona radiata, and then you have a part that is known as cumulus euphoricus. So the zona pellucida consists of a glycoprotein coat, a protective shell, eggshell it is called, and sperm has to penetrate the zona pellucida for fertilization. Thecal cells stimulated by LH to secrete the androgens, that is the estrogen progesterones, and the granules also, with the influence of FSH, convert androgens which are produced to estrogens under the influence of aromatase enzyme. And clear liquid gathers to form the fluid antrum, that is called a secondary follicle. Then there is corona radiata, and fully mature follicle you can see in the diagram, it is called as the Graafian follicle. This is the follicle where at ovulation it is released in each monthly cycle. So again you can just go through the different stages of the cellular growth and formation of the Graafian follicle, and this is the ovulation. At this stage there is the ovulation. After that the thecal and the granulosa cell which are remaining without the ovum, they are converted, this is called as luteinizing phase, and there is formation of deposit of fats and glycogen, and these cells are called as corpus luteum. That is eighth one, that is the corpus luteum formation. Corpus luteum increases its size, it becomes 1.5 centimeters in about 5 to 6 days, and it gives nutrition to the growing embryo if the fertilization takes place up to about 2 to 4 months. And after the development, then this function of corpus luteum is taken over by the placenta. The placental hormones, and the placenta takes up the nutritive function of the growing embryo. So 2 to 4 months, certain human chorionoid gonadotrophin which is released from the developing embryo, and this will help the corpus luteum to not to regress up to about 2 to 4 months, survives up to 2 to 4 months, and it gives the nutrition to them because it contains a lot of glycogen, fats, and different other substances which are glucose, so that it gives all this to the growing embryo. The next part we go is the fallopian tubes, oviducts. They have 10 centimeter and 1 centimeter diameter. They receive ruptured oocyte from the ovary, and fallopian tubes are not in direct contact with the ovary, but there is a fimbriated end or finger-like projections which capture the oocyte. Some chemicals are released by these projections, and therefore the ovum is caught up by these fimbria and taken up by the fallopian tubes. And it moves into the peritoneal cavity. It must reach the mouth of the fallopian tube to be fertilized. So this is important. current draws the oocyte into the fallopian tubes towards the fimbria. Fimbrias, they move about so that the ovum can be captured. Then there is infundibulum, a funnel-like structure. You can see the next part. And lastly is the ampulla, where the fertilization takes place. And then is the isthmus, as it enters the uterus. They provide site for fertilization, usually in the upper end. 10 to 11 days for the zygote to drift down the tube. So about 10 to 12 days it may remain in the tube, and then the zygote will go to the uterus for implantation. Then the wall of the fallopian tube, they are lined by longitudinal circular smooth muscle. They move the oocyte towards the uterus. They have ciliated areas in certain sections, and they secrete certain nutritive substance to nourish the oocyte. For tubes, it's important in the sterilization procedures where the tubal ligation is done. The tubes are tied, sometimes they are cut, and two silastic rings are put on the two ends of the tube so that now the ovum will not move to the will move, so that fertilization is not possible. The procedure closes the fallopian tubes, and so the traveling of egg is prevented. It also prevents sperm from reaching the fallopian tube. In tubal ligation, the fallopian tubes are cut, burned, or they are even blocked by rings, bands, and clips. So there is most effective, 98% there is no failure, very less failure rate, and they do not protect against HIV and AIDS. Uterus is hollowed structure. It is called as a womb. Nowadays, it is the era of surrogacy, where this womb is utilized for, and it is very common nowadays, surrogacy, where this uterus of some other female is used for implantation of the child of other person. It retains and nourishes the eggs. Before first pregnancy, its size is pear-shaped, but after this, it can enlarge. After childbirth, it remains a bit larger. Isthmus is slightly narrower region. It consists of three parts: isthmus, fundus, body, and cervix. Isthmus is slightly narrower region between the body and the cervix. The fundus is a rounded region. You can see that fundus there. And the body, it's a major hollow part where ultimately the implantation takes place. And the cervix is a lower neck or narrow outlet of which projects into the vagina. So cervix forms a part of the birth canal from where the fetus is expelled out during labor. Wall consists of three layers: perimetrium, myometrium, and endometrium. Its outer layer is perimetrium. Myometrium is muscular, smooth muscle. It is contraction under the presence of prostaglandins and oxytocin during childbirth. Then the endometrium, where the shedding of the endometrium takes place, mucosal lining. Its implantation, it's also important in implantation. And if implantation doesn't take place, fertilization doesn't take place, the endometrium will go cyclical changes monthly, and this is shed during the menstrual phase of the menstrual cycle. It receives rich blood supply, complex network, and so it can respond to hormonal changes of the different hormones which act on the uterus in pregnancy and stages of the menstrual cycle. Then you have the cervix. Cervical opening is small. It acts as safety precaution against foreign bodies entering the uterus. During childbirth, cervix dilates. It forms a part of the birth canal. And sometimes if the cervix dilates before the full term, then you have to do the cervical, that is called as os tightening. The cervical os has to be tightened if there is the chances of abortions. Repeated abortions, dilatation occurs beforehand, then you have to tie down the cervix. So cervix is important in that sense. And in labor, the dilatation of cervix takes place. And condition one is known as cervical dystocia, in which the cervix doesn't dilate and the normal labor is difficult to occur. And in this condition, then cesarean section is inevitable. So this is one condition, that is cervical dystocia. Then you go to the vagina. Stern wall, fibrous tube, 8 to 10 centimeter to accommodate the penis. It's a structure of the sexual intercourse. It lies between bladder and rectum. It's a birth canal and passage for menses also. It's a copulatory organ. Vaginal mucosa has no glands. With the help of two Bartholin's glands, there is lubrication. pH of vagina is acidic, and this help in that it should be it is helpful because vagina is exposed to infections, so this acidic pH will decrease the chances of infection. The mucosal cells have a lot of glycogen which gives protection, and also mucus secretion from the different glands. pH is acidic, maintained by glycogen stored, keeps vagina healthy, parasite free, and low pH is hostile to the sperm. So high pH of seminal secretions aids to neutralize this is very important during intercourse, and this is important for pregnancy. High pH of seminal secretions aid to neutralize the acidic pH of vagina and enhance the survival of the sperm. So this is very important. In infertility, you have to even see for this changes in the pH in the vagina. There may be some causes if the acidity remains for long, so sperm cannot survive. Mammary glands, they are present in both sexes, only become functional in women. They are important because after childbirth, milk is secreted by the oxytocin reflex, and by the posterior pituitary, it secretes oxytocin, and these oxytocin cause the milk let down reflex. There is development of the areola and the glandular tissue. Only after birth, the oxytocin is released. It is helpful in childbirth, and also it is helpful for milk let down reflex. Each mammary gland is contained within a rounded skin, which is covered breast. It's also the breasts are a part of the secondary sexual characters, and slightly hollowed structure, darker than skin, which is called as a nipple, the areolar lesion, which is surrounded by the central nipples. In the areola, there are large sebaceous glands that give it a lumpy texture and appearance. Both areola and nipple are innervated by autonomic nervous system. They become tight, lax according to cold temperature, and nervous stimulus, sexual stimulations are there from the nipple and the areola. Mammary gland internal structure made of 15 to 25 lobules that radiate around the nipple. Each lobule is connected by lactiferous ducts that open into the nipples. This get milk to the nipple. Lobes contain alveolar glands which produce milk during lactation. The lobes are separated by connective tissue and fat. You can see there are suspensory ligaments in the connective tissue that attach the breasts to the pectoral muscles of the chest. So this is the typical diagram of the breast. You can see the high fatty tissues, the nipple, the areola, ducts, and milk producing cells or the lobule, and the pectoralis muscle where it is attached. So lactiferous ducts, suspensory ligaments, pectoral fats, nipple, and lactiferous sinuses. Then the next part, which I would like to tell about the menstrual cycle, which is very important. So, what is the menstrual cycle? It is a rhythmic series of physiological changes which occurs in a fertile female in the ovary, in the uterus, and the hormonal changes which occur monthly in a female or in the fertile age group. And one thing which we should know is the female sexual cycle. In female sexual cycle, there may be changes. There is hormonal cycle. You have the ovarian cycle, the uterine cycle, and also cyclic changes in the vagina, cervix, and the other organs. So this is a female sexual cycle. Well, menstruation is the physiological changes that can occur in the fertile female. That is from puberty to menopause. This is very important for reproduction. Average length is 28 days, but I told you it can go from 20 days to about 45 days. But with typical varies with shorter and longer cycles. Menarche, first menstruation, usually occurs at 12, but even it can occur nowadays. Menstruation has started earlier, 7 years, 8 years, because of some factors. That is the certain environmental factors, psychosocial factors, which has decreased the age at which the puberty takes place. It may be about from 7 to 8 years also. So we cannot say that 12 years is just the where the menstruation starts. It occurs, depends on overall health and diet of the individual. Sometimes it may even occur after 15 to 16 years. So we don't know exactly. Menopause is end between 45 to 55. Even nowadays, early menopausal is very common, about 35 years also. So in some females, but rare cases. Age of menopause is likely result of some genetic also. It is usually the genetics, like mother, like daughter. The physiological changes due to menstrual cycle at different level, neuroendocrine level, very important. They control it. The ovarian level, as we have seen the ovarian cycle. Then you have the uterine changes in the endometrium. And then it can be divided into three phases. The menstrual phase, where actually the menses takes place. The follicular or the proliferative phase, which is the estrogen phase. Even some progesterone acts, but it is usually the estrogenic phase. Secretory luteal phase under the progesterone. So these are the different phases of the menstrual cycle. That is the uterine changes which will occur in the endometrium. So menstrual phase 1 to 4 days, up to 5 to 7 days also, but usually it is the 4 days. The next is the proliferative phase, 5 to 13 days. Ovulation usually occurs on the 14th day, but it may be even on 13th or 16th, usually from 13 to 16 days, but usually it is the 14th day. And secretory phase is from the 15th to the 28th day. So it's a 28-day cycle. Plus minus can occur with each cycle. Longer cycles and shorter cycles can take place. Menstrual bleeding, it is also called as menses, period. These are all what we say. Discharge of bloody thick fluid containing endometrial cells, serous fluid, glandular secretions from the endometrial glands, blood cells. It doesn't clot. Usually it's a free-flowing fresh blood because of fibrinolysin which is present. This fibrinolysin doesn't allow the blood to clot. It lasts for about 1 to 4 days. Starts with spotting and then it lasts to about 4 to 5 days. It's a result of the previous menstrual cycle due to strong how does this menstruation occurs? We'll go later on in detail, but just strong vasoconstriction, different prostaglandins are released, and there is withdrawal of progesterone during this phase. Functional stratum, the whole endometrial tissue dies. There is necrosis of the endometrial tissue because of vasospastic activity in the endometrium. There is vasoconstriction, the blood supply decreases, there is leakage of blood in the endometrial cavity. This causes ischemia of the cells. There is necrosis, the cells are sloughed off, and along with the serous fluid and the blood, which is then removed, and these endometrial cells, then they are then detached from their basal layer, and then they are discharged during the menstrual blood. This is all under the withdrawal of estrogen, progesterone. Usually it's a withdrawal of the progesterone and release of certain hormones such as local prostaglandins like substances which will cause ultimately the contraction of the uterus to release this material out of the vagina. Endometrium becomes then very thin, but due to low estrogen levels, the hypophysis secrete. Now, as the estrogen progesterone decreases, there will be increase of the FSH and LH. And the FSH stimulates secretion of estrogen, and it serves as a proliferative signal to the endometrial basal layer. So now the FSH will take over, the menses will cease, and more of the endometrial cells will start proliferating, and the proliferative stage starts under the influence of FSH mostly. In the end, even the LH is being secreted for ovulation, and estrogen also starts coming out from the granulosa cells. So these also cause proliferation of these cells, and also the ovulatory changes which occur in the ovum also takes place at the same time. So you can see the different phases. That is, the egg is maturing, then ovulation is taking place. Then you have the secretory phase. The ovum is ready. If the endometrium is ready with the corpus luteum, egg can be fertilized, and there you have the menstruation. If the fertilization doesn't take place, then you have the menstruation. These are the different cyclical changes which are occurring. So you can see all the different cycles. You have the ovarian cycle, which I've always told you, that leads to corpus. After ovulation, there is formation of corpus luteum. up to about 12 days, and after that, if there is no fertilization, then corpus luteum will degenerate, and that will lead to formation of corpus albicans. And after 1 to 2 months, then this corpus albicans will also be taken up by the phagocytic cells. So they will be taken out. So you can see the body temperature changes. There is 1 degree rise, about 0.5 to 1 degree rise in the body temperature after at the stage of ovulation. And you can see the different hormones which we'll go in later on. And this is the uterine cycle. You can see the follicular phase. That is the menses, where all the tissue is shed. Then next is the follicular phase. The blood vessels and all, they start growing. The stromal cells, the tissue of the endometrium, they start increasing. The glands, they increase. The connective tissue, it increases. The endometrial cells, they are increased. And ultimately, then there is a stage of, on 14th day, there is ovulation. The ovum is released. And then there is formation of the corpus luteum, and still the endometrium will start proliferating, and you have the secretory phase, because lot of glands which are there, they will start proliferating, and the glands will secrete lot of progesterone along with estrogen. And then lastly, you go to the 28th day where the menses will occur. So this is the whole cyclical changes which are occurring in a 28-day cycle, one after the other. The phasic things are going on. Though there may be some hormonal changes sometimes, but this cyclical changes will still be there. The ovulation will not take place, or the bleeding will be less because of less layers of the endometrium. So there may be many changes which can occur, which will be seen in the next part of the lectures. So now we go to the hormonal things. Initially, after menstruation, I told you menstruation due to withdrawal of progesterone and estrogen which are secreted. After that, due to the FS. Now, first of all, the hormones at puberty, the most important hormone, that is gonadotrophic, GnRH, or gonadotrophic releasing hormone. This hormone is released from the arcuate nucleus of the hypothalamus and even some part of the anterobasal medial hypothalamus, anterior part of the hypothalamus also. Also, some say that there are certain higher areas in the brain, they also cause a stimulation of the growth hormone, stimulation of the secretion of GnRH. So GnRH is released only before puberty. GnRH, it doesn't being released before puberty. So when there is certain environmental changes, certain changes in the limbic system, or changes in the upper brain, and even some changes in the hypothalamus, that leads to in the age group of about 10 to 12 years, there will be formation of the GnRH, and this GnRH is released in pulsatile fashion. It is not in a continuous fashion. If it is released in continuous fashion, then there will be no stimulation of FSH. It's a 3-tier system. So GnRH is very important for the stimulation of FSH and LH, and also for the development of the follicles and all. The FSH and LH are very important. LH is very important for ovulation. So as we see, the GnRH pulse about at 1 to 2 hourly, about 90 minutes, you have one pulse, and it causes a pulsatile release of LH at about 90 minutes. So GnRH pulse along with the LH secretion takes place. It's in a cyclical manner. Now follicles compete with each other for dominance. This is under the secretion of FSH. The follicles, they develop, the ovarian cycle which develop under the secretion of FSH, and then at some extent even some LH is being produced. But it is usually the FSH which is important for the proliferative phase. And I told you estrogen is also secreted by the follicular cells, that is in the antron follicle and in these secondary follicles, and these estrogen also causes more stimulation of FSH, more formation of LH, and FSH-LH receptors are increased. LH, which is important for ovulation. So FSH receptors, this is a positive feedback system in which estrogen causes increased secretion of FSH and LH also. So follicles that reach maturity, which forms the Graafian follicle, and they say that estrogen and FSH is responsible for only one follicle which is maturing, because estrogen is released, which will cause inhibition of FSH and LH, that is pre-ovulatory suppression, and only one follicle will grow, and the other follicles that are maturing will not mature because there will be very less FSH and LH. So this is the reason why only one follicle will go to maturity. So as the follicles mature, they secrete increasing amount of estrogen, which thickens the new functional layer of the endometrium. So estrogen also stimulates crypts in the cervix to produce, and now it forms cervical mucus. There are certain crypts are produced in the cervix, which are lined, and they're important for the movement of sperm to the uterus. When there is copulation, the cervix provides a passage for the sperm to go for the sperm to go to the uterus. At the end of this phase, then the ovulation will occur. Now you can see this again, the different phases. Then you go to the next phase, that is ovulation. For ovulation to occur, there is very, very important. During this follicular phase, estrogen suppresses the production of LH from the pituitary and even the FSH. Then why we say that? Because we don't know the exact region, just about 12 to about 36 hours before ovulation, there will be sudden rise of LH and to some extent FSH. This is because the estrogen which causes the pituitary to secrete LH. The reasons still unknown. This LH causes the follicle to expand, the antrum to expand, lot of fluid will be secreted in the follicle. There will be, at one end of the follicle, there is formation of a nipple-like projection which weakens the wall because of certain proteolytic enzymes which are produced, and they weaken the wall of the follicle. Also, a lot of blood vessels will be developed inside, and this causes swelling and exudation of fluid from these blood vessels into the follicular fluid. The follicular fluid thus becomes, the pressure of the follicle increases because of the increase in the fluid, which causes increase in the turgidity of the follicle. There is, due to all these conditions, there will be, the follicular wall will become weakened. So these are the reasons that the release of then LH matures the ovum, weakens the wall of the follicle, causing the fully developed follicle to release its secondary oocyte. The follicle, there will just before ovulation, about 7 to 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, there will be oozing of the fluid from the follicle, and in the next 2 minutes, the nipple will open up, there will be discharge of the ovum along with the serous fluid, ovum which will be surrounded by zona pellucida and zona pellucida. After being released from the ovary, the ovum is swept into the fallopian tube. The next, if this ovum is fertilized, and when there is ovulation taking place, even there is some release of local prostaglandins and even the progesterone starts increasing under the influence of estrogens. So the granulosa cells start secreting progesterone. This progesterone also has an effect in the ovulation process. So corpus luteum is a solid body which is formed. Luteum is a luteal phase or luteinizing hormone. Luteal means yellowness because a lot of fat and glycogen is produced, and they have certain, this fat and all, they are cholesterol which is important for formation of the sex hormones. It produces, this corpus luteum produces significant amount of progesterone, and which plays an important role in the endometrium, which becomes receptive to implantation of the blastocyst. High levels of estrogen progesterone suppresses now FSH and LH will decrease after ovulation because of estrogen and progesterone, and falling levels of progesterone will then again trigger menstruation. At the end of the secretory phase, where the corpus luteum, if fertilization doesn't place, the corpus luteum will degenerate and it forms corpus albicans about at the 12th day, that is at the 26th day of the cycle. And at that level now, there will be decrease in the progesterone and estrogen, and now the FSH and LH can be released. FSH mostly will start releasing because the inhibitory effect of estrogen and progesterone stops the on the anterior pituitary decreases. So now there will be started a production of FSH will be there, and then LH in the later part of the cycle. So then leads to the menstrual cycle. So this is how there is the different phases of the menstrual cycle which takes place. So ovarian hormones at the lowest in the menstrual phase, gonadotrophins are beginning to rise, that is FSH and LH, and stratum functionalis is shed and the menstrual flow will occur. This is the hormone, different changes in the different organs. Proliferative phase, estrogen level prompt generation of new functional layers, increased synthesis of progesterone receptors in the endometrium. The glands then enlarge, spiral arteries increase in number, and this is the proliferative phase. In secretory phase, again, the progesterone levels promptly increase because of corpus luteum, glandular secretions increase, the arteries become spiral, the different glands they increase, further development of endometrium, formation of the cervical mucus plug if fertilization doesn't take place. So this is just a revision of the part, the menstrual shedding, the proliferative phase, and the you can see the glandular size, the blood vessels, they are all increasing. So phase, ovulation on the 14th day, then the secretory phase and the menstrual phase. If there is fertilization, then the endometrium is receptacle for the receiving of the embryo. Both the menstrual and the proliferative phase occur before ovulation, and together they correspond to the follicular phase of the ovarian cycle. The secretory phase is the time to the luteal phase of the ovarian cycle. If fertilization doesn't occur, then corpus luteum will degenerate, progesterone level will fall, spiral artery will kink and spasm, endometrial cells will begin to die, there is necrosis, the spiral arteries constrict, relax and open wide, rushing of blood fragments, weakened capillary beds, and the functional layer will slog off. Now establishing, you have seen already this. And one more hormone that is important is inhibin, which is also released along with estrogen and progesterone from the granulosa cells after the formation of corpus luteum. It will also inhibit the FSH and LH hormones during the secretory phase. So at puberty, they say the triggering factor is leptin from the adipose tissue, which decreases the estrogen inhibition, and so GnRH, FSH and LH are released. And in about 4 years, an adult cyclic pattern is then achieved and menarche. So leptin is, they say, from the adipose tissue is important in this cycle. So again, the GnRH release, FSH and LH, which growth of follicle, increase estrogen, which inhibits the release of FSH and LH, stimulates synthesis and storage of FSH and LH, and enhances the further estrogen output. It's a positive feedback cycle of estrogen you have seen. Then estrogen output by the vesicular follicle increases, high estrogen levels, positive feedback effect, and sudden LH surge at the day 14. So this is very important, LH surge at day 14. Transforms ruptured follicles into corpus luteum. Corpus luteum produces inhibin, progesterone, and estrogen. As I've already said, these hormones inhibit the FSH and LH. So declining FSH and LH ends the luteal activity and inhibits the follicle development. The follicle will not develop at this stage. So day 26 to 28, in the menstrual phase, the corpus luteum degenerates, the ovarian hormones decrease, that is estrogen and progesterone. The blockage of FSH and LH is released, the negative feedback is released, and now again a new cycle will start. So these are just what I have already said, the portal system, hypothalamus, GnRH, anterior pituitary, FSH, LH, positive feedback. Then you have the androgens which are secreted from the thecal cells. They have effect on granulosa cell. There is inhibin which will inhibit this GnRH and FSH and LH. So estrogens, they have both a positive as well as the negative effect. Estrogen has both effect, negative as well as the positive effects. So these are what thing, this is a positive feedback loop and the negative feedback loop which I have already discussed. This is a diagrammatic representation which I have already explained. So these are the levels at different phases. FSH and LH, they just increase during the ovulatory phase. LH surge, FSH also increases. That is about 6 to 10 fold increase. Well, FSH increased to about 2-fold increase. So that is the difference between FSH and LH. And these are the different ovarian cycle changes. Just a diagram to give you a revision of the thing which I have already seen, the different phases of the ovarian cycle. This is the menstrual cycle. And when does the ovulation occur? Usually occur on the 14th day. 48 hours later, that is between 11th and 13th day, or close to cycle day 14. Women with shorter menstrual cycle lengths tend to ovulate earlier, and women with longer cycle lengths tend to ovulate later than 14th day. Despite the variation in the menstrual cycle length, the time from ovulation to the onset of the next menstrual period, that is usually constant. This is usually constant, that is 2 weeks. This principle is a basis for use of calendar methods for the safe period calculation and also during infertility. We can calculate when the ovulation will take place, and accordingly we can advise the female. So we can calculate it from these, the largest cycle and the smallest cycle. So these are the hormones which we can see: estrogen increasing, first phase, then the progesterone is just at the basal level, and then it increases in the secretory phase. So you can see follicular phase, estrogen is there and FSH is there with slight LH. While in this phase, secretory phase, you have the estrogen, some progesterone and inhibin. These are important here. So these are the different ovarian hormones which are important in the menstrual cycle. So this last part, you can see in everything, the different hormones, the cyclical ovarian changes, the ovarian hormonal changes, the endometrial changes, and the phases of the uterine. So in the whole thing, you can see all the changes, the female sexual cycle as a whole. You can see here from the hormonal levels in the different phases, the follicular stages, that is ovarian cycle, then the hormonals, the hormonal changes, and the endometrial cycle. So all the cycles in the one diagram which we can draw whenever it is asked. So same thing, one more diagram you can draw in this way also, the hormonal changes. When this is asked, we can draw the hormonal changes taking place during the menstrual cycle. Even this diagram can also be drawn for the hormonal regulation of oogenesis and ovulation. And this is the last part of it. Okay, so thank you for your listening. And next part, we'll say about the hormones which are in detail of the hormones which are important in the female cycle.